It's who's gonna see my vulnerability as strength and not see my vulnerability as weakness.
They need to come out of the darkness. I lived in there too long, and the pain was too great.
So that's why you're seeing more and more athletes, these superheroes, talk about that because, hey, we're human too, they're saying.
Yeah, you get no credit for not asking for help, if that makes sense.
The gift of the tree is what? It's fruit. It might be important to mention here at this point that trees never eat their own fruit. I told you that your gift is never for you. It's for meeting the needs of someone else.
To me, it's about being there for your neighbor. The great Miles Monroe, in one of his sermon and speeches, talks about humans as an orange tree. And we grow, and the orange grows on the trees, not for the tree itself, but for the others to come up and take that tree. So for me to think about that and to say, hey, I've got this stigma of being strong or I can't be vulnerable, if I'm not being genuine or transparent and doing everything that I can for myself, I'm hurting my neighbor and I'm not giving them a healthy fruit.
A lot of times, while we're dealing with this and while people sometimes deal with it in silence, when you look at like professional athletes, it's who's gonna see my vulnerability as strength and not see my vulnerability as weakness.
Simone Biles is focusing on her mental health after withdrawing from tomorrow's individual all-around competition.
Just last week, Brown posted a video to social media saying that during the 2020 season, he contemplated taking his own life.
Four-time Grand Slam women's tennis champion Naomi Osaka has withdrawn from the French Open, citing mental health issues.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, us being in this football world or just in sports, it's all about, it's a macho sport, it's a macho thing, and who can be the manliest or the mental toughness.
We've been told that we're the very best. We've been put on this pedestal to put us on display as being the best and the strongest and the most athletic and to receive all the awards. And then I will have to openly tell you that I'm weak. That's a hard thing to do.
I want others to know that they need to come out of the darkness. I lived in there too long, and the pain was too great.
I'm Dr. Yolanda Bruce Brooks, mental health and wellness consultant for the Dallas Cowboys, sport and clinical psychologist. Basically, mental health is how we function in the emotional, psychological, social, physiological, physical space. In other words, our whole body-mind relationship. We might have mood swings, and we all do, but it doesn't necessarily warrant being exaggerated where you have longer periods of depression and longer periods of where you feel elevated. But the key difference is when it becomes something that interferes with day-to-day life.
So for me, it's so important to take care of myself, to make sure that I'm focusing on my mental health, focusing on being the real man and being genuine, whether it's going through depression, going through anxiety, or being the happiest and the most outgoing that there is. I'm being me and I'm being genuine. And I know that it's so transparent and allows me to be the best leader that I can be, because others say he's not a machine, he's human. And I can be like him, I can grow, I can become stronger, I can go from the depths of my adversity to the peak of my strength.
It's okay for me to cry. It's okay for me to have these moments of vulnerability, and it's okay for me to have these moments of weakness.
So it's nothing to be afraid of, because fear is what propels that stigma. That stigma is what keeps you away and those barriers. So that's why you're seeing more and more athletes, these superheroes, talk about that because, hey, we're human too, they're saying.
it's not such a taboo topic like it used to be. So if we can just continue to, put it out there and tell our stories and, how it affects us and other people can relate to it, I think you're going to start to see a little bit of change.
I came in contact with mental depression and anxiety for the first time in early of 2020 when the rest of the world was struck into a pandemic. And what it causes for me is stillness, is paralysis, I guess you can say, and that's not who I am. I'm a person that gets up early, and I want to go. I want to get out and about. I want to go help people. I want to go work out. I want to do whatever I can to grow and to be better. And so when I was experiencing depression and anxiety, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to work out. It seemed like I had a dark cloud. I mean, you're talking about 80 temperatures, 85 and sunny, and to me it felt like the worst day there was. I just felt claustrophobic, and it was all these emotions and feelings that I'd never felt.
Texas hospitalized more than 10,000 virus patients.
Non-essential businesses will remain closed for weeks longer.
A long-term deal is not done with Dak Prescott, so he will play on the franchise tag.
Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott's older brother Jace died Thursday. He was 31 years old.
It's hard for me to fathom that with everything I had going on, I had those feelings that if people that are less fortunate than me, how do they feel? What are their emotions? What are their thoughts? And sometimes they take their lives. And so that's where I created that empathy, and that's where I got the realization is I've got to use my platform to do more, because my feelings and my emotions may be too much on me right now, but I can fix them. I can talk, and that's who I am. But there's others that aren't as open to doing that, and I need to be there to help them and to understand that it's okay to not be okay, and you can ask for help. My foundation is the Faith Fight Finish Foundation, which I started in honor of my mother who passed from colon cancer in 2013. And she left those 3 words for me and my 2 brothers. Faith was for me, fight was for my older brother, and finish was for my middle brother. My foundation invests in the future of our youth by empowering families, individuals, and communities to find their strength through their adversity. And we have 3 pillars, and one of our pillars is mental health and suicide prevention. And my foundation wants to take those individuals, families, or communities that are dealing with the mental crisis and allow them to, at that time of that adversity, find their strength, find who they are, find their purpose in life, and understand that they do matter, understand that it's okay to not be okay, and we, my foundation, and others are here to help them succeed and get through their adversity in life.
Was this one of your more difficult periods for you to handle, just from the standpoint of what went on this off-season?
Yeah, for sure it was. As it was for, I'm sure, majority of the world. But when you have thoughts that you've never had, I think that's more so than anything, the chance to realize it and recognize it and to be vulnerable about it. And I obviously got the help that I needed and was very open about it. But I think that's why I was fortunate enough to get over it, as not all of us are, but to be transparent about it, that even in my situation, emotions and those type of things can't overcome you if you don't do something about it.
Coming out and talking about your own personal struggles on a national platform like that, I think is extremely courageous, because you don't realize how many lives that you affect, especially Dak being the quarterback of the Cowboys. Yeah, I decided to share my story a few years back just because I know what it's like to be in that headspace. I know what it's like to feel alone, like nobody cares. It's part of who I am in my past. And if my story can get out there and help some kid, not take their life, that's why I do it.
Hey, I got a lot of respect for what you did. Came out and talked about. Me and my mom have a foundation about suicide prevention. Yeah. Respect the hell out of you for talking about it, man. Collab one day. Absolutely.
That was the first interaction I had with an NFL player, a peer, that said, thank you. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you for being an example of vulnerability and the transparency that we need. You mentioned my mom, my brother, my injury, and so many more, much smaller than those in between. The way that I've answered and responded to those have shown me that through adversity, I can gain strength. I can create a purpose through my adversity. And I've done it through those experiences of losing my mom, her telling me, allowed me to be your story. All greats have a story to where I am today. That's an experience that allowed me to learn to when my brother passed as I wrote, one life taken to save millions. I can't control what's happened, but I can control how I move forward, and I can control how I honor my mom, how I honor my brother, and how I honor myself and my family. And that's by moving forward.
Not going to keep it. Prescott breaks the tackle. And picks up a total of 9 more.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
When the injury happened, that was a laughter because of the things that I had been through. At this point, I know that my leg, this is something that I can control, creating my small victories, leaning in on my family, my friends, and my support system. And through experiences, as I've done with other things, this adversity is only going to make me better and stronger as not only a person, a player, and as a man. I'm in great spirits. Headed to see the doctor, headed to see my leg for the first time post-surgery. So just ready to start this road to comeback. I know this little adversity is just going to be another chapter in the book. And I'm excited to move forward and write it. Just once again, can't thank you all enough for your love and your support through it all.
I cannot go anywhere in the country without someone asking me, how is Dak Prescott? You know, and the best word that I've been able to come up with, he's just special. And this is one of many things that he stands up and has stood tall and has made himself vulnerable. And I think it has helped so many people. And I think it speaks volumes about him as a person. And it's just one of the many things that he does. So the fact that he's put his face on it, I think speaks volumes, and it's definitely something that makes our world better.
I walked in the league, a 22-year-old man with a 16-year-old inside of me screaming for help. And I would not ask for it. I would not ask for that help. But today, guys, I take my medicine every day, and I try to inspire others to do the same. Football was easy. Football was easy. Hey, you line up, hit them in the mouth. They open that mouth, hit them in the mouth. When they got that mouth open, hit them in the mouth. So you know what? I could hide my mental illness in football because that's what we're trained to do. We're trained to be warriors. Hey, to conquer. I'm a conqueror.
This is what my body should look like. This is what a warrior look like.
I believe there's nothing that I can't do. I believe that. So, and when you believe things like that, like you said, that sensitive side, you don't never let out. I was a full-fledged coward when I played because, I would cry a lot. I would go for a 3-mile run, and I would think about all the things, and I was trying to just ask God to help me get through this, get through that. Why am I thinking like this? When I was younger, probably 10 or 12, I tried to commit suicide, and I don't know what happened because I put the gun to my head and I pulled it, but the bullet went in the wall, didn't go through my head. And I told my mom, and she slapped me down to the floor. And I would punish myself for the things I did. And somehow I would just do things just because I felt so guilty about it. And, and I got away with it. And I was picked on, bullied, then I became the bully. So that's when I really went into hiding, because now I realize that I'm unstoppable. And that's when, I was able to hide everything. Football gives guys a chance just whatever's come up and you do. It's like the Wild Wild West. You could be whatever you want to be. So you can act out as much as you want.
Way to dog him. Way to use him as a piss boy. George, I hit your mama. Emmett want to try to joke you, Kevin. Let's joke Emmett. Start another camp.
You know, I created that illusion. You know, I didn't want people to see who I was. I didn't want people to see that child screaming for help. You know what? Sometimes I still don't want people to understand that pain inside of me, that cowardice inside of me, just saying, you know what, Charles, I need help. Reach out.
Mental illness is a medical condition. Many people suffer from invisible wounds, like cancer. Nobody can tell you if you have cancer or not unless you get screened for it.
I like to thank my ex-wife, my 4 beautiful kids, Madison, CJ, Brianna, and Princess. In 1988, she diagnosed me with manic depressive. And I thought she was just a group of guys that wanted to always put me in this box. So we had problems after that. And I never really listened, nor did I step up to the plate and do something about it. My life spiraled out of control for years. But today, guys, I get to go back into the locker room to my teammates and tell them, guys, the mistakes that I made. And that the only way that you can grow is that you gotta ask for help. As long as that stigma stays there. See, the stigma don't define me. I define who Charles Haley is. Because you know what? I made a decision that I have a mental illness and I'm willing to get help. I'm willing to take my medication. I'm willing to listen to friends now.
As I get older, I understand how difficult it was for Charles because of the mental health issues to stay within the game. And a lot of things he did was his way of coping with it. And as you look back on it, you understand how difficult with his talent and what he had to do just to get into the game and prepare himself for a game. And it was difficult, but he found a way to get it done. I'm glad he did get the opportunity to be in the Hall of Fame because he was an intense player, and on Sundays he would give everything he had, and he would play at a different level. But you can't imagine how difficult that was for him to stay focused like that.
I do the little things. I recognize my ups and my downs, my cycles. I'm not gonna say it's easy. It's not. But the day that I asked God for help, and he gave me this help, he helped me to surrender. So that's why I tell people, the first thing I tell them is, find something to live for. Because it's easy to find 99 other things to not live for.
You know, you go from being this high caliber athlete that can do anything in the world to all of a sudden, now you're, incapacitated and you can't do anything. I came into the league injured. I was drafted after about halfway through my recovery, so I had a 9 to 12 month recovery based on coming off of my foot injury in college, and I got drafted without having to be able to play Senior Bowl or really do much of the combine. So I show up injured.
It kind of sucks because you're not in control of nothing. I think most people like to be in control of their lives, and for that one time in your life, you're not in control. You don't know. I might have stayed in Seattle. I might have been in New York. You don't know. You're moving somewhere for the most part, and just that part of it was kind of an uneasy, anxious type feeling. But when I finally got the phone call, it was definitely relieving.
Being the rookie that can't perform, that you can imagine how stressful that is. And then from that point forward, having to deal with injuries. having to deal with the acquisition to a new city, having to deal with not having any friends around you that you feel like you can trust, not having anybody that you can really, have conversations with in regard, and dealing with the politics of professional sports now. There's so many mind games that people don't understand, even just on a week-to-week basis. People see these big contracts and they get all excited. So, so many of these guys are making big money, but they don't understand that most of the guys you're on a week-to-week contract. Now I'm playing in a position that I've never played in my entire life. I'm coming off one of the worst injuries that you can ever sustain as an athlete. And oh, by the way, figure it out. There was a lot of dark times. There was times where my shoulder would pop out of socket when I'm in the middle of my sleep, and I'll wake up screaming, and then I have to go into the training room, and I don't want to really report it, but I have to tell them something because I know that if I don't practice, then my job might be at risk.
For me, that was often a weekly occurrence of, hearing the rumors of, or knowing, hey man, that position group is really banged up over there. They're probably gonna bring some guys in to work out on Tuesdays. And I'm like, well, you're the fifth receiver, so they'll get rid of you to bring in another linebacker. And having to deal with that every single week while trying to focus on how to do your job properly and having nowhere to go as an outlet.
So the confidence, I deal with that a lot because they're concerned about getting cut, getting traded, the stability's gonna be gone, and that's because of one thing that happened, and they need reassurance, and they don't have anyone there to reassure them. And so that's part of the business side of the sport. All this time they've been playing a game that they love. Now it's a business, it's a job, and the rules are different. But they don't feel that difference until it happens.
I wasn't allowed to cry growing up. I wasn't allowed to show any weakness, just because of the neighborhood I grew up in and because my mom just didn't want no softie. And so when I went to Seattle, it was my contract year. Things were going well. I was back home. I was killing it. I was about to be named captain, and then I tore my Achilles. And at that point in time, I remember, again, I wasn't allowed to cry growing up, but at that point in time, I just lost it. I lost it. I had worked my butt off my entire career getting to this point to where I can ball out, get the big boy check, take care of my fam, never really have to stress about work again, all those things that you really dream and hope for as a young kid, especially with me making the decision early on in my life to turn down pro baseball. I put a lot of eggs in my basket in terms of football. And to know that that was my last real opportunity to seize those things that I had hoped and dreamed of my entire life, that was demoralizing. That was very demoralizing for me. I knew that was really it in terms of my career. In terms of trying to reach the big boy contract. And at that point in time, it was a light bulb that went off that said, you need to start working on phase 2. Everybody's battle's different. And the reason why I named the business Steadfast is the fact that everybody has to remain steadfast through those seasons. And that situation looks different for absolutely everybody, but everybody has a story. So whether it be somebody that's dealing with things that are physically, obviously compromising them, or something that's mentally holding them down, everybody can and will get through it if they're willing to do so. And we just try to play our part.
You can go all the way back to high school. And my coach one time, we were playing in a game and I got hurt. And I remember him coming to me and him getting eye to eye with me, like face to face. And he said, your team needs you. And he said, are you a man or are you a machine? And he said it to me over and over and over again. Till I started crying. I started saying to him, I'm a machine. I'm a machine. And when you think about that, the insanity in it of that you're believing that you're a machine is, for me, kind of the early stages of it. And feeling depression, feeling anxiety, but then hearing those chants in your head Are you a man or are you a machine?
The language does have a significant impact, especially in the formative years. And the reason I keep saying in formative years is because in that age when they start entering the sport is also the period in development, life development, in which you start developing your identity. So when you specialize in sports, which is happening at an earlier and earlier age, you begin to identify with that sport. So who you are as a person in that process is defined by the sport. Without the sport, you're no one.
One instance that takes me back was my rookie season in the National Football League. And I was cut. And that was the first time in my life that I wasn't tied to athletics. I was so hurt. I was so embarrassed. Just everything. I wanted to just hide. I barely left the bed. And you begin to question everything about yourself. And that was kind of really when I was like, there's something really happening here. And it wasn't until recently, within the last year, that I finally came to the conclusion that I'm not a machine, that I'm human, that I fear, that I hurt, that things do bother me. The main thing is for me is being an athletic director now. I try to hire good people. I try to vet the people that I'm hiring, but also I try to create a culture of openness. I try to let my student athletes know, and it's moments like this where they look at me and I tell them, hey, I deal with that. You can talk to me about that.
For the youth, my biggest message is to compare yourself to yourself. We're living in a world where obviously we just all went through COVID, but the social media is at an all-time high, and everybody, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or whatever it is, they post the highlights of their life. Never the lowlights or the reality of what's going on. It's usually the highlights. And for me, it's about comparing yourself to you. As where were you yesterday? Where do you want to be tomorrow? And being aware of where you are right now and taking those steps to get you to the ideal picture of who you want to be and where you want to be in life, and not comparing yourself to anyone else or letting the outside world dictate how you feel about yourself.
Everybody has its strengths and weaknesses, so different doesn't mean greater than or less than. It's different. And you have to learn to master who you are as a person.
And so having that support system around you gives you that community to lean on and to hold you up when you're not able to stand on your own. I've always said any player that says he doesn't hear the outside noise is an absolute liar. Most players, 99% of them have social media, and if they don't, their friends and family do, their girlfriends, their, whoever it is, they have it. And sometimes family comes back to you kind of at times unknowingly and say like, hey, let me tell you what so-and-so said. You're like, really?
I mean, it's unfiltered. I mean, at a football stadium or a football game or even practice, I mean, it's a controlled, environment where it's like the hecklers and everybody that wants to troll. It's to a limit, So social media doesn't have that. There's no regulations. Everybody says what they want to say, and I mean, if it's good or bad, it's out there, and they can do whatever they want to do.
before it was a handful of reporters that you knew, and you could shake their hand, look them in their eye, and address them if you had any issues. But now everybody has an opinion, and that opinion is always being voiced. And it doesn't matter if you're doing well, it doesn't matter if you're doing bad, somebody's always gonna have something negative to say about you.
You sometimes turn to social media and look for that positive. And sometimes it's there, and sometimes it's not. And that's the gift and the curse of something like social media.
Unfortunately, there are people who are vulnerable and don't recognize that because of the detachment. It's not live and you're not physically present with that person. People say all kinds of things they wouldn't say if they were with that person live and in person.
They can contact you and continuously heckle you and harass you, and it's definitely has become a problem. And guys have definitely been seen interacting with guys that have been trolling them, and it hasn't been good.
It's on y'all! It's on y'all! Touchdown!
You're always gonna internalize those comments, regardless of how tough your outer shell is. Some of that's gonna seep through. Right? It's like water. It's gonna come through eventually, and it really just depends on how mentally tough you are to be able to fight those things off and not to allow them to affect you and how you decide to progress forward.
I think one thing about professional sports, in today's arena, you have to get comfortable with the negativity that's thrown at your football team, at your organization, at you personally. So yeah, it wears you down. I've always viewed it as part of the job, but when I'm finding later in life, it's very difficult on your family, and that's the part that I struggle with. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah, social media is tough for me. Obviously, I use social media, have to for the marketing side and being able to connect to my fans. And I think that's the best and the biggest benefit of it, is being able to connect to so many people, whether it be family, friends, or fans far out that are out of in-person reach. But it's not a place that I like to live. I want to be very real, transparent, and genuine. And I don't know if social media can ever display the real me.
I mean, I like to troll back. A lot of people don't do that, take that approach about it. But at the end of the day, you got to understand, we're football players. This is our craft, and we definitely have, like a sensitive, I feel, palate for people that criticize our work. And on that aspect, you just gotta understand when somebody's heckling you and when somebody's trolling you, and understand, that your value isn't, dictated on their opinion.
I understand the people that hate me are usually the same ones that are giving me the biggest praise when I do well. So I had to understand that the critics are the same one praising me. So if I'm allowing anybody into my head, it's pointless. So to stay focused on what I believe in, where I want to go, and who I am.
It's clearly a lot different today than it was 10 years ago. So the toxicity of some of the narratives, it gets old. But when it's at your dinner table, that's the only time it really affects me. So, but I chose this profession. My family understands that, and so as long as we're good, I'm good.
I'm so thankful and happy that these programs are available, that the NFL has responded and teams have responded, because it's now become a more popular topic to talk about.
I'm required by the collective bargaining agreement to be on site 8 to 12 hours a week. I maintain a private practice, but I'm available, accessible 24/7. So I'm typically here on certain times and days that I know that if someone wants to physically come and visit with me, they can. Most of the time they text me and call me, stop me in the hallway or something, but I create an educational program to help send out messages and information on a regular basis. They go through a heck of a lot. a lot more than I think even they stop to pay attention to. And then you get to the sport, the game that they love so much. But the other component that comes with that, the secondary gain, is they have a family, a unit, and that's the team. And for many, that consistency the team brought was the most continuity they had in belonging and connecting that they had in their lives. A number of them. Again, not all. But when I started breaking apart of that and looking at how long they had to sustain physically and mentally, learning plays, studying plays, then you get to the talent. Some are better than others, but then some have work ethic that compensated for the lack of talent. And you look at all of these pieces that must fit right at the right time, in the right place, on the right team, and stay physically healthy. That's a lot.
Well, the origin of the STAY program, and it stands for Soft Tissue Activation and Acceleration. You know, it was part of the training curve that we wanted to put our football team on in season going into a game. And STAY was really giving the players to regenerate their bodies. It's a regeneration program with all the basics. Part of the STAY program, and I just can't say enough about Chad Bowling and what he brings to our program is, you know, we inserted the mental conditioning education and, you know, continuing training in that space.
One of the first questions I'll always ask groups for me is what percentage of this game is mental for you? You know, so whether it's football, whether it's baseball, whether it's hockey or any sport, what percentage is mental? And I usually get a, 75%, 80%, 90%. The next question I ask is, how much time do you actually spend working on it? And a lot of people in the room are, I don't work on it that much. And I'm like, I kind of combat that and say, you are working on it. We're all working on it all the time. Our mindset, we're always thinking. Last year we really implemented the mental part into the STAY program initially, and then they would break out to the other sessions that they would do, the yoga, the Normatec, the hot cold tub. But I would always get that first 15 minutes with the players to really, what we call, get their minds right. Get their minds right on a Friday for the Sunday's game or Monday's game. But individually for players, it's a little bit different. So there's things, whether it's individually meeting with players, and kind of talking them through things that maybe that they're going through, or again, the video component, we make highlight tapes for the players where they might watch certain videos, 2 minutes, 3 minutes long of themselves, seeing themselves as being successful. And then also adding in some mental, kind of reminders for them before a game that they might watch right before the game to kind of put them back into that space of, okay, I'm ready to go play.
Chad deserves so much credit for my development, not only physically, but more importantly, mentally, that resulted in physical gains. He's a guy that I got real tight with after my second season in the NFL. I was going through a little confidence crisis, I guess you can say. My first year in the league was fun and just all sunshines and rainbows, where it got into year two, and that's when some things that you can't control came up, and I felt like I was trying to control them, whether it be the national anthem conversations, whether that be things within the locker room, whether that be teammates being suspended or teammates being injured. There was so much difference between my first year and my second year, and I was trying to control things in my second year and happened to be losing myself and confidence in the same time. And immediately started working with him, meeting with him once a week, if not twice a week, and from there felt and regathered and regained my identity and who I was, and not just a football player, and more than that, and how I was going to create goals to make sure that I stayed that way and aware of that.
The credit goes to him because he's the one that's willing to work on it and emphasize it. And for me, he went from here to here. I always talk about that, going to the next level. Really getting into that neutral space is so important for individuals, of being able to handle whatever's thrown at them, the highs, the lows, throughout, whether it's an athletic career or just in life as well. Things are going to get thrown at you, and it's how you handle it's going to be important.
Yeah, you get no credit for not asking for help, if that makes sense. Nobody's giving points or pats on the back because you did something by yourself. That's not life. As I said, the great Miles Monroe says, we're an orange tree. We're all here to grow oranges for our neighbors. Yeah, the ask for help on my wrist tape wasn't meant to go viral. It wasn't meant to be as big as it was, but I'm blessed. And I think it just allowed me to realize doing something as simple as that, the extent that it can go, and so many people in this world that can see that and create and gain some kind of hope from that is something that I'll never take for granted or take lightly, this platform that I have, and I'm able to do that.
We are creatures that need to be connected. We are not insular, but yet we convince ourselves we don't need this or that, but we need each other. That's how we, by design, we are.
People have to stand up. People have to be willing to be vulnerable, talk about the pain that they are going through, the pain they've been through, and how they overcame it. That is how you're gonna solve the problem.
And even if you don't have the answers, we tell people all the time, find someone that will listen. If you are talking to someone, listen. Sometimes we don't know what it is we're going through, but we know it's not right. We can't articulate what it is. So listening toward understanding is first.
It's power in that. It's power in the vulnerability. I no longer have to hide. I no longer have to do this thing by myself. I no longer have to have these thoughts by myself, that there are people out here who are just like me. And that's the human side of it.
You know, it's gonna sound oversimplified, but take it a day at a time. You know, that's what I told myself when I was going through some of my darkest days. You know, if I can just get to tomorrow. Just step by step, hour by hour, and day by day. And that's how I got through it. Lean on your loved ones. It's gonna get better. I promise it does.
And when you're able to speak your piece and to say, you know, I am Jesse Holly and I suffer from anxiety, depression. It's a weight that's lifted.
Get your freedom back. Talk about this. As I said, I believe we're all here for each other. So that's the key importance in talking is when you do that, you educate, and through education, you create empathy.
The key to this whole thing is stigma. Are you willing to say out loud to a group of people what I'm dealing with? Are you willing to say that? Or are you just whispering it to your family, yeah, I'm going through depression. The moment you accept it, I have a mental illness. I have a mental illness. Either seek help or ask for help. Hey, and let other people guide you. Sometimes you need to be led to the water, and then you gotta drink.
That's what it takes. It takes a community to defeat the mental illness, because we have to understand when those things come and when those trigger points are happening that create anxiety and depression. And as I said, being there for somebody else, you can help them eliminate those trigger points. And but you can if we're not talking about it and being vulnerable.